Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about what is probably my favorite poem, a villanelle called One Art by Elizabeth Bishop, and I guess we should just start by reading it together. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 beloved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster. And isn't that just lovely? Doesn't that sound nice? So what is this poem about? Well, one interpretation probably pops out for most of us, at least it does for me, that it's kind of a fun, ironic, melancholic poem about coping with loss. We begin with the bold claim, the art of losing isn't hard to master. Things get lost all the time and dealing with it shouldn't be a problem. But as the poem progresses, this idea gets challenged. Sure, she starts off losing unimportant things, keys, some time, but then she's losing homes, sentimental objects, cities, and continents. Is that really so easy to deal with? And by the end, she snaps. Thinking about losing you, a joking voice, a gesture she loves, she says, the art of losing's not too hard to master. And we're like, oh, not too hard to master? Maybe losing stuff is kinda hard, Elizabeth. Maybe a bit more difficult than you let on at the beginning. We could go through the poem more with this interpretation in mind, but suffice it to say, it makes sense. It works well, and by the end, what we get is really nice. This little, sad, beautiful poem about trying to deal with the inevitability and difficulty of losing the things you love. I like it. But it does leave me with one kind of troubling question, and here it is. Is this interpretation entirely true to what the phrase, the art of losing, really means? See, when we read this poem with the interpretation I just talked about in mind, we assume that when Bishop uses those words, the art of losing, she is referring to the art of dealing with loss, coping with the things and people that leave her. But here's the thing, that's not the way we'd usually read those words. If I said the art of basketball isn't hard to master, you would rightly assume I was talking about the playing of the game, how it's easy as hell to dunk tons of balls. I'm not talking about the art of having a career outside basketball, the art of giving your opponent a handshake after the game. No, I'm talking about the art of basketball. And so, what if, when Bishop writes about the art of losing, we took it the same way? Assumed, at least on some level, that she is writing about losing on its own terms, as a thing that you can learn to do. I love this interpretation of the poem so much, because the second we read these words, the art of losing in a literal way, the whole thing just gets extremely weird. And that's because that phrase, at least on its surface, is an oxymoron. One of the basic characteristics that makes something art is that it was produced by someone who wanted to make it. If a sculptor made a mountain or a tree or a sunset, we would immediately recognize that they were making art. But because nobody made those things, at least if we assume that there is no God, they aren't art. They're just pretty things. Meanwhile, the act of losing something, it kind of can't be intentional, at least not the kind of losing that Bishop seems to be talking about. You can't intentionally lose keys or beloved objects or whatever, because the whole point is that you didn't want them to be gone. You wanted to hold on to those keys and you failed. You put them somewhere and you don't know where. Losing is not art. It is art's opposite. This is one of the main jokes in the poem, right? Bishop instructs us to lose something every day, to practice losing farther, losing faster. And our only response can be, how? How can I practice that? I mean, I can't do something accidentally and on purpose, right? What do you want from me? But within the poem, that's not presented as any kind of problem. These two ideas, making art and losing things, aren't opposites. In fact, they're treated as one in the same. The name of this piece, after all, is One Art. There is only one, and what could it possibly be besides the art of losing? And I don't know. I think there's a lot of truth in that, at least in an emotional way. It can be nice to think of art as this inherently productive act. I wanted to make a painting, I made it, and now I have a painting. But here, it seems like Bishop says, no, art is really defined by its own absence. When you produce any kind of work, what you are really doing is unintentionally misplacing a part of yourself, handing it over to the world and losing it forever. You do not give life to the work. It kind of just leaves you. In the last stanza of the poem, Bishop talks about losing you, the joking voice, a gesture she loves. As I said before, this is what makes her crack, what makes her implicitly admit that the art of losing isn't easy to master. And it's easy to assume that that you refers to a person, a lover or a friend or whatever. But that voice, that gesture, maybe it's the poem itself. And when she says write it in the very last line, as though she's having trouble putting pen to paper, as though she has to force herself to go on, maybe that's because the poem is ending, because she's losing it. Okay, everybody, that's the end of the video. I hope you liked it. I imagine this one's not going to get a ton of views. It's about a stupid poem, but that's okay. It's the yearning of my heart that counts. If you did like it, please like, comment, subscribe, give me money on Patreon if you want to. And now it's time for my Patreon question of the video. Ida asks, would you rather have fish legs and a human upper body, like a mermaid, or human legs and a fish upper body, like, I don't know, a reversed mermaid? I think this question is extremely funny because, like, it's expecting this to be, like, a difficult question. Would you rather be, like, the normal thing that everybody enjoys and universally is beloved, or would you rather have a fucking fish torso and face? No, I'd rather be a normal mermaid. Thank you. Okay, bye.